Firstly, the Commissioner for Police and myself have just returned from Bondi Junction, Westfields, where centre management are opening up that venue for members of the public. Trading won't take place, but it is an opportunity to reflect as a community on the last week and, most importantly, pay tribute to the 6 people that lost their lives as a result of that terrible and horrifying crime last Saturday. I think that the opportunity to do that as a community is very important. It's the first step in healing. As I've said to a few people this morning, it's not back to normal for Sydney, but this is an opportunity to get some kind of grieving and to turn the page on what's been a very difficult period. And I know many people want to express solidarity and sincere condolences to those that have lost loved ones. There's also a major vigil that will take place at Bondi Beach on Sunday night at 5:30, and we encourage members of the public to come along to that vigil, perhaps not to bring flowers, but to bring a candle to show some community solidarity and send a massive message to the 6 families who've lost loved ones that we're thinking of them, we care for them, and we want them to get through this together. There's been, in the midst of so much violence and anxiety in the community, an overwhelming public response to the suffering of those families, and it's wonderful to see that we are a community that can come together, that we're a community that can stand together in difficult periods and show that that grief is universal when it's felt by one family or one individual. I've also been bowled over by reports of the community rallying around New South Wales Police and the paramedics, as well as hospital staff. This morning I was able to visit Prince of Wales Hospital, the paramedic station at Randwick, as well as Wakeley Police Station, and speak to the first responders who went to Bondi Junction to protect the community, to save lives, to ensure that they were doing their job in a diligent and professional way. They exhibited the finest traditions of public service in New South Wales. And as I've said many times, we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. I spoke to young police officers that said for the first time in their careers they were walking down the street in Bondi or Waverley and complete strangers were coming up to them, thanking them for their service to the state and wishing them the best. I'd love to be able to do that 365 days of the year, but it's amazing when we have big traumas and terrible crimes, how much we remember the importance of New South Wales Police and how it's regular people doing an extraordinary job to keep us safe. There's also examples of members of the public. There was the first paramedic on scene on Saturday after the shift was completed, went to the pizza shop to order pizzas for the entire crew. Before he had an opportunity to pay, a young bloke whipped out his card, paid for all the pizzas. When the paramedic asked for his name, he wouldn't give it, and he just walked out the store. I mean, that's sort of quiet gestures of decency for one another, I think hopefully can be the hallmark of what has been a terrible week in New South Wales. I'm going to hand over to the Commissioner for Police in a moment, but I want to speak about social media firms in particular first off. It's still a major concern for New South Wales Police and the government to have so much unsubstantiated rumour as well as graphic content still available on public websites and social media platforms. It proves to be very difficult to foster community cohesion and harmony, to calm down the community, to send messages of unity in a difficult period when social media firms still continue to disseminate terrible pieces of information, untruths, rumours that circulate like wildfire through a febrile and anxious community. We want to work with the Commonwealth Government to close down these pages wherever they eventuate. It's very difficult to do it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday. It's almost impossible at 1 o'clock in the morning when New South Wales Police are attempting to protect religious venues or other parts of the state that are potentially under threat of attack or vandalism because somebody, in a malicious attempt to sow division in our community, has posted an irresponsible message on social media. There's also still, my understanding, the confronting images of the stabbing at Wakeley on Monday night, still available on social media. Now, even the the most passionate defenders of social media firms that may argue that it's difficult to take down content in the immediate aftermath of a violent incident, it's pretty hard to defend it considering we're 48 hours after the offence and it's still up, still available. Now think about what that does to community cohesion. These are unedited images of an alleged crime that are guaranteed to sow division in the community and make passions boil over. Secondly, this is completely inappropriate information available to young people that's just available on the World Wide Web, it's just available on social media. So we want to work with the Commonwealth Government. In my view, this is the antithesis of what we need to bring the community together, and social media firms have a social and moral licence to take down divisive information and graphic content as soon as it becomes available. We're trying to sow together the seeds of division in our community to tamp down a combustible situation. And I think the media in New South Wales, along with the government, the members of political parties have done a good job, certainly religious leaders, but a lot of that good work is undercut if social media spreads information and lies like wildfire. So we want to work with the Commonwealth Government to do something about it. Happy to speak. Happy to turn it over to the Commissioner for Police.
Thank you, Premier. Following the events at Wakeley on Monday night, police established two strike forces, Strike Force Katrina to deal with the stabbing inside the church and Strike Force Dribs to deal with the riot that ensued following the stabbing. As a response, the police have 70 police officers dealing with the proactive engagement with the community in response to that. That will remain ongoing. Today, we've added a further 10 detectives to the investigative arm of that strike force, taking the number to 42 to deal with the investigation to identify those responsible for the riot. A number of people disguised themselves on that night, and we need to know who they are. People in the community know who they are, their families know who they are, and we need to know who they are. We will continue to investigate this for as long as it takes to identify them. The best thing that the community can do is call Crime Stoppers to let us know who they are. The sooner they're identified and put before the court, then the sooner they can be dealt with. We have some people that have jumped on multiple police cars. One individual has a very distinctive tattoo on his torso of a face, while he has cowardly covered his own face. So we're calling on the public to identify those people and assist police. We believe there are up to 50 people involved that we need to talk to. Last night, police identified and charged a 19-year-old man for being involved in that riot. That individual, whilst coming from the community, wasn't a member of that parish. I have said before, what we did see and anticipated and has been shown is that people just came along to participate in a riot. And that's disgraceful and disgusting. 51 police officers were injured, and thankfully they're recovering from their injuries. And multiple police vehicles were damaged and many remain inoperable, which means police can't respond to calls from the service, calls for service from the community because of those vehicles being out of action. We will work to repair those as quickly as we can, but it's stopping us from doing our job. So we do need the community assistance to identify those people involved in that riot and come forward. The sooner they do that, the sooner we can get this on with. Until then, we will remain committed to this investigation for as long as it takes. As for Strike Force Katrina, the young person remains in hospital and remains a patient of the healthcare system. However, police will and continue to conduct a major investigation concurrently to him being in hospital. And when we have material information to share on the progress of that investigation, we will do so. I'll now hand over to the Minister for Police.
Thanks, Karen. Thanks, everybody. Look, the government is very pleased with the actions, the swift action that New South Wales Police have done in standing up Strike Force, in standing up the Strike Force Dribs. Can I say that the scenes that we saw on that night were quite unbelievable. and standing up this strike force as swiftly as the police have done are doing two things. We are ensuring that the community is kept safe, and also making sure that those people who were involved in that violent riot are found. The government will make sure that they work hand in glove with the police and provide all the resources they need to keep the community safe and find those people who committed those violent acts. Look, I just want to reiterate what the Commissioner just said, and that is we need your help. Please, if you know any of these people, call Crime Stoppers and let us know. It is critically important that we find who they are and that the police have the opportunity to speak with them and to arrest them if that is what is needed. Thanks.
We're all happy to take questions.
Commissioner, how many individuals have you identified that you may be making arrests of later this week?
Our intention, and as we showed last night, as they're identified, they will be arrested. We arrested one man last night, and we'll continue to work through the identification of those remaining. We think there is up to 50 individuals. There may be more. But as soon as they're identified, they will be arrested.
Is there any indication that this 16-year-old followed any extremist accounts on social media?
That will all be subject to the investigation.
And is there any indication that he might have visited fringe centres or places?
As I said, I know everyone wants answers, but it is really important. Can I just stress that he has not yet had the opportunity to be spoken to, in fairness to him, and there is a major investigation, and we will update the public as soon as we have more information to share. As I said, he's currently a patient. When the doctors clear him, we will be able to talk to him. Until then, he remains a patient in hospital.
His parents have said that he suffers from what they say are undiagnosed mental health issues that will examine his life.
Of course.
Premier, on the teenage boy, we now know that he has some history with the justice system. Are you concerned, or do you think more could have been done by the justice system and or the health system in regards to this boy before this happened?
Yeah, look, I'm not going to prejudge an inquiry that would take place by New South Wales Police and the government looking at the circumstances relating to that alleged attack. But of course we'll examine it, and if changes can be made, I'll take responsibility for it. But we want to make changes. I think reasonable people in New South Wales would expect that if there's mistakes that have been made, either his previous interactions with education or one of the other government departments, of course we'll look at it closely and make changes. We want to ensure we do everything possible to prevent this from happening again.
Premier, you said earlier that today that you don't want to rush legislative changes on changes to knife laws. Given there's 2 incidents in 3 days, do you think there do need to be changes and they need to be strengthened?
Well, look, they're reasonable questions. We changed knife offences in legislation soon after getting elected to government. So mid last year, legislative changes went through the Parliament, doubling the jail term for the maximum penalty for knife offences in New South Wales. We took it out of the Summary Offences Act, we put it in the Crimes Act. We doubled the penalty fines that would be issued by magistrates and judges as a result of knife offences. However, given these very serious criminal attacks in the last week, of course a responsible government would look at the existing legislation and see whether potential changes could help prevent a similar attack. Now, you're not going to get an exact attack in the future, but it's important that we look at how they're applied in practice and whether we can make changes to prevent it from happening again.
What will that look like? Will that be a review, or how are you looking at it?
So a couple of things. Firstly, the Sentencing Council is looking at knife-related offences, and they haven't reported back to government, but of course we await their findings and we'll examine their recommendations to government. Similar to the terrible death of Stephen Toga in another knife-related killing, the government examined the existing laws. We spoke to the New South Wales Police, we gathered information and we made a legislative change. I don't want to prejudge it. We have to ensure that whatever changes, whatever legislative or policy changes that we make actually make a difference, and that's going to take a little bit of time.
Prominent mosques in South West Sydney have said this morning to different outlets they're growing
going to circulate about any sort of retaliation tomorrow? Will the police have a visual presence at the mosques and stuff across the week?
We expect a surge from New South Wales Police, and I know the Commissioner has made that clear in the last few days. That's important not just for the immediate security concerns of major religious institutions, churches and mosques, but also that there's a sense of safety and security for those that are seeking solace from churches and mosques over a very difficult period. We fully appreciate that in difficult times when anxieties are high, many people go to the church or the mosque. So we want them to be safe in those institutions with their communities. So there will be a big police presence in Western Sydney. That puts enormous drain on the resources of the New South Wales Police. I just want to make this point. We are lucky that we've got such dedicated, hard-working public servants in the New South Wales Police Force that are prepared to put themselves in difficult situations it's a febrile, anxious environment, but they really are the line that keeps order, safety, and makes people, members of the public, feel secure in a difficult period.
So your concern regarding the social media companies?
Yes.
Have you spoken to the Commonwealth Government about what options are available to prevent dissemination?
In the immediate aftermath of the crimes, we spoke directly to the Commonwealth Government about removing specific pages that had become famous, if you like, or infamous for spreading misinformation in the community. We're happy that the Minister for Communications communicated that to the East Safety Commissioner, and some of those pages have been taken down. Now, that might have been direct action from the social media company, or otherwise they're down, which is good news, because in many instances malicious information about damage to mosques and churches was being spread like wildfire and inflaming tensions in the community. I'm still concerned about graphic, violent imagery being available on public domain websites, major websites, 48 hours after the incident had occurred. Like, it might be the case that you sit back and say, well, if someone posts something, maybe you've got to give social media firms a little bit of time to take it down, but we are 48 hours after these alleged criminal offences took place and they're still available. Now, this is dangerous for two reasons. Firstly, it adds to the sense of community disharmony, and secondly, it's completely inappropriate for children. And I think everybody's got a responsibility to not provide graphic imagery to young people who can just access it from their bedrooms and their phones.
Just to follow up Matty's question, I mean, what in your mind would those tough penalties look like?
I heard the Minister for Communications speak this morning about tougher penalties. I think that would be warmly welcomed by the community in New South Wales. I know that we were struggling over the last week with particular websites and pages that, as I said, were spreading lies and disinformation. So if we can prevent or stop or put social media firms on notice that there'll be consequences if you don't take an active management of what's happening on your own websites, that'd be good for the state.
Premier, we understand the family and prominent figures from the Lebanese Muslim community have been left confused by such a quick terror designation of the attack, especially in the boys 60 and hasn't yet formally been brought to by the police. Do you agree with that sentiment that they have been left confused by why it was such a quick terror designation?
Well, no. I mean, firstly, this is an active major investigation. It does involve a terrorism designation. People, in my view, should allow the New South Wales Police to get on with that job. It's important. Secondly, the designation from the New South Wales Police Commissioner concurred with by the Minister for Police was important, not to rank one crime over another or to give one more prominence over another, but in a legislative sense, in order to access increased powers for New South Wales Police as they were conducting this investigation, a terrorism designation needs to be applied. So, look, they're entitled to their view. They can obviously make public commentary about it, but it's my judgment that the absolute right decision was made, and our primary and first responsibility, particularly after a violent alleged attack, is to keep the community safe.
What about looking to legislate age restrictions on social media like they have around the world?
Look, I'm not going to comment about that right now, but I think a broader discussion about social media access by young people, not just in relation to the last week, but its impact on mental health, on personal images, on how young people feel about themselves is long, long overdue.
I understand last year you spoke to the father of Queensland
Yeah. So yes, that is true. Jack's father, and the Commissioner and I both met with him. Actually, we were at the Police Ministers' Council in Brisbane, and you know, our condolences, of course, to he and his wife. Can I just say in New South Wales that you can actually use wands. Police can use wands here in New South Wales now. But look, I think just as the Premier has said, we will look at everything. We will not close the door on anything. We'll have the coronial investigation as well, and the recommendations will come out of that, and of course we will consider those. But in terms of Jack's law, it's early days too in Queensland, as I understand it. Those laws have only been enacted since the 14th of February this year. So in the natural course of things, the Ministerial Council right around the country, we discuss all of these matters when we meet, which will be in just coming weeks, and we will seek an evaluation from them. But it is early days, so we'll keep speaking about that with them, though.
Have you heard the Bishop's message of forgiveness that came out this morning? What do you make of that?
Yeah, big-hearted gesture from the Bishop, and I think that his message, particularly around for Christians, around the importance of forgiveness and the renunciation of violence, is exactly the message that we need to hear in Sydney. I also want to say that gesture was really important, and it was echoed by every major faith and religious leader in the state over the last 48 hours. Major Muslim leaders, the Grand Mufti in New South Wales, as well as Christian leaders renunciating violence in all its forms, whether it's retaliatory violence or the alleged offences that we've seen on Monday night. They're important messages, and it means that anybody, any bad actor that's attempting or thinking about acting out is doing it in defiance of the religious leadership of New South Wales, universally condemned by the senior religious leadership of New South Wales.
Commissioner, can I ask you, just in your opening comments, Commissioner, you mentioned looking at 50 people who may have disguised themselves. You said we need to know who they are, but families and friends know who they are. Is there any suggestion that your investigators are encountering an unwillingness to cooperate and identify who these people are?
No, not necessarily at all. In fact, we've received a large number of reports to Crime Stoppers already, but we're very keen to speak to those that played a major role on Monday night. And as I said, one individual was responsible for damaging a number of police vehicles. So we're very keen to speak to that individual.
Premier, it's been pretty unprecedented week in Sydney. How confident are you that NSW will come out with stronger? How confident are you that the state to...
Yeah. Look, I reckon that's a reasonable question, because there's people in the state. Firstly, there's families that are grieving the loss of innocent lives that have been killed, and they're going to take time to grieve. Secondly, I think the community needs to process what's happened right across Sydney, in the east and the west, over the last 6 days. But I'm very confident that that the best of New South Wales will emerge. And if I could give specific examples of charity, bravery, goodwill to one another, my sense is that this community is strong and united, and the best of New South Wales will be on display in the weeks ahead. Now, that's not me just saying everybody get back to normal. It's not going to be the same for a while, and that needs to be acknowledged. I've spoken to some of the family members who've lost loved ones in the last few days, and I won't go into the specifics of the conversation, but to a person, they've been bowled over and overwhelmed by the fact that Sydney has rallied behind them, and they feel as though they're not alone, and they sense that there's millions of people that are in their corner, and hopefully they can give some small solace in a terribly dark period.
Last couple, though.
Commissioner, do you believe that officers currently have the requisite tools to deal with knife crime in New South Wales?
Oh yes, certainly. Certainly we've got our own tools, but certainly got the legislation to search those individuals, etc. In fact, we last week ran Operation Foil, which we conduct regularly. It's a knife operation. We seized 51 knives. Now, knife crime is an issue that's been on the agenda across Australia and New Zealand for many months and years now, and it's not new to us. It's been the same globally. But it is a concern, and certainly operations like Operation Foil show that we do take knives from those that shouldn't have them. It's illegal to possess a knife in public.
So you don't need to empower them to be ramped up or legislation.
As I said, I mean, I will work with the government on their review and anything that's suggested, but certainly the powers that we have show that we get results.
Commissioner, I know you mentioned that a lot of the rioters covered their faces, but a lot of there's a lot of vision around that particular incident. Why is only one been arrested so far?
We've got 600 hours of footage, and we're working through that, but people can expect to knock on the door.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Last
you.
one.
Thank you.